Easter Island is covered with hundreds of massive statues, carved from volcanic rock using only stone hand tools. Each figure was carved from the cliff faces, lying on its back, and then tilted to standing for finishing touches. As if that monumental feat weren't impressive enough, the Rapa Nui people then moved these enormous statues across the island, an island that is not what anyone would call flat. The very volcanoes that provide the stone for the statues also provided a rough, rocky terrain. Yet the Rapa Nui people managed to move statues that weigh around 14 tons, from their main quarry at Ranawaraku to the altars around the island, and some of the altars are over 12 miles away. To give you an idea of how impressive that is, the average four-door car weighs about 2 tons. That means that one statue could weigh more than 6 cars. With no paved roads and only people, trees, stone tools, and ropes available to move the statues, how on earth did they manage it? That question is still a matter for debate among archaeologists. Many assume that the statues must have been transported on their backs, where they would be most stable, and dragged using rollers, sleds, or a combination thereof. Then the statue would have to be somehow lifted or propped up at its final destination. Oral tradition, on the other hand, insists that the statues walked into place, so some archaeologists also explore methods that support those tales. As far back as 1955, an ethnographer named Thor Heyerdahl got 180 volunteers to drag a 13-foot, 10-ton replica statue using ropes and a sled. Then they erected it using a stone ramp, a task that proved both difficult and dangerous. In 1986, he tried again with the help of an engineer and 17 assistants, and used both a similarly sized replica and a smaller one that weighed only 5 tons. These they moved while each stood upright by using ropes to walk them. They succeeded in moving the statues, but caused damage to the bottoms from the motion. Although other researchers dismissed the method because of the chipping to the base, Heyerdahl believed that the method could move a statue twice as large over the rocky ground by about 320 feet per day. For a 10-mile trip, that would take about 5.5 months. A year later, another archaeologist named Charles Love tried this walking method and decided it would be too unstable for the rough terrain. Instead, he stood the statue on a sled and pulled it using rollers. With only 25 people, he moved a 13-foot tall and 9-ton replica 148 feet in 2 minutes. That's a lot faster, but again, not all archaeologists were convinced. In 1998, archaeologist Joanne Van Tilburg tested whether a replica could be moved while lying on its back using rollers or a sledge. The rollers didn't work very well, but with the sledge and a Polynesian canoe ladder, they moved the replica statue 230 feet. At the end of the experiment, the team estimated that it would take 55 to 70 people 5 to 7 days to move a statue about 15 kilometers, 9.32 miles. And a team of 20 experts could then stand the statue in place, which would take 3 additional days. That's about 10 days total. As before, some archaeologists agreed and some didn't. Some argued that she used a different kind of wood than what would have been available on the island, making her findings less accurate. Other objections were that her replica was inaccurate, that the area of the test was too flat, and that the number of people required was unfeasible given the Rapa Nui population. The main motivation for disagreeing, however, seems to be the argument that the statues were transported upright rather than lying on their backs, and there is some evidence to support that theory besides oral tradition. Broken statues line the paths between Ranawaraku and the altars at the shoreline. Those who support the walking hypothesis have pointed out that the statues that were broken going uphill are lying on their backs, and the statues that were broken going downhill are lying on their fronts, the natural way for them to fall if being transported upright. Also, some statues show evidence of damage at the base that could be from being walked into position. This led archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl Lippo to retest the walking method. Using 3 groups with ropes, 18 people moved a 5-ton replica 328 feet in 40 minutes. Again, arguments were made about the smoothness of the terrain and the exactness of the replica, yet many are convinced that this walking method fits existing evidence and traditional stories better than the idea of dragging the statue prone. That's really the best that archaeologists can hope for. Without going back in time ourselves or miraculously finding written documentation, the only real option remaining is to test methods to see what would have been possible, and then see which one best fits the facts available. In the end, all we really know for sure is that the Rapa Nui made and moved over 900 statues, and that archaeologists aren't going to stop trying to figure out how.